Namaskar. Today we are going to discuss about the natural disasters and its mitigation approach. We have seen and we have discussed what are the different type of natural disasters are. Primarily we have classified into the geological disasters, hydrological and meteorological disasters. Today we are going to discuss about the different type of hydrological, meteorological and geological disasters. So, we are going to pick up certain few important and the major disasters, what are the causes, how is the impact, it is impacting our community and how we can mitigate the impacts of disaster. So, what is the need for effective disaster management? As I told that the floods 18.6 million hectares of area, it is flooded every year. Earthquake 59% of area, it is prone to moderate to very high seismic risk. 5 to 6 tropical cyclones in Bay of Bengal and in Arabian Sea, it is coming every year. 80% of the cyclones are striking the eastern coast. Drought 33% land area, it is receiving less than 750 millimeter of rainfall, that is the chronic droughts we call, and 60%, 68% of the area it is prone to drought. Landslides, whole northeast states, northern part of India like Jammu Kashmir, Uttaranchal and Himachal Pradesh, and part of your Konkan area, Western Ghat, it is East and West Ghats, they are prone to landslides. Avalanche, Himalayan states, they are suffering from avalanches, and forest fires, it is happening in the Himalayan states and the Ghat region. So, these are the basic profile what we are getting for different type of hazards and disasters happening in the across the country. As I told you, water and climate related disasters, we include floods, cyclones, tornado, hailstorm, cloudburst, thunder lightning, snow avalanche, heat waves and cold waves, sea erosion and drought. In geological disasters, earthquake, tsunami, landslide, mud flow, dam burst and mine fires, these are the geological disasters happening. Now, let us see and have a look on the what are the different type of geological hazards are and what are the causes, how it is impacting our community and what are the basic mitigation strategy we have for that. India earthquake, you can just have a look that India, it is having 59% of the area prone to moderate to very high seismic risk. So, at this moment IS 1893-2002, it has released a basic seismic zoning of India, and we have the 4 zones, zone 2 to zone 5. Zone 2 is low seismic risk zone and zone 5 is very high seismic risk. Here you can see the whole northeast states, part of Gujarat, part of Bihar, part of Himachal Pradesh, Jammu Kashmir, they are falling in zone 5, and whole northern part which is very closer to the Himalaya, they are prone to zone very high, not very high, but high seismic risk area, and whole we can see the blue color which is zone 2 and where the low risk of earthquake is attached to that area. If we see the major and the significant earthquakes in India, the catalogue shows 1819 Gujarat, Kutch area, June 16, it was affected by earthquake. At the same time 1956 Anjar, Gujarat was affected by earthquake and 7.0 magnitude of earthquake was reported in that area, and also 2001 Gujarat was affected, Bhuj area was affected by earthquake and 6.9 magnitude of earthquake it was reported in that area. Now, you can see 1819 to 2001 we have seen in Gujarat itself 3 earthquakes and all 3 were massive one. Also, you can see that Bihar, Nepal 1934 there was earthquake, 1988 that area was Bihar Nepal border, it was visited by the bigger earthquakes. So, we are finding that The disasters like the earthquake, it is visiting the same region again and again. So there is a requirement that how better we prepare ourselves for disaster management. I am not going to talk much about the causes of the earthquake disaster, because there is a definitely a scientific approach to understand what is the mechanism, how earthquake happens, and basically there is a plate tectonics, that is the mechanism which is reason for earthquake in modern phenomena. It is what type of impacts we are finding it. It may be impacted in terms of loss of life, properties, physical infrastructure, public health, electricity and the communication, and business and economy. Apart from that, many other issues, many other elements of society, it is affected by earthquake. But generally one adage which goes on, that earthquake never kills people, it is the buildings do. If earthquake, it is happening in the mid sea, no person he is going to be affected by that particular earthquake. Even in the mid of the desert, if it is happening and nobody is there, earthquake is not going to kill anyone. But a small earthquake of 5.5 or 6, it is visiting some area, or it is affecting some area where the houses are not constructed properly. Might be the building will collapse, and people living in that building or occupying that building, they will be trapped, and if the immediate action is not taken, people will die also. So the key success for earthquake risk mitigation lies with sustained development, strong development, and disaster resilient development. So that we have to keep in our mind. How basically we can protect our community from earthquake risk? There are different ways, and mostly in earthquake we talk about mitigation, where one thing is that whatever the old structures you have to retrofit it. You have to assess those buildings whether they are resilient to the impact of disaster or not, or if the buildings you are going to construct the new development, or you are going to make new buildings, new bridges, and what infrastructures you are planning to, and you have to take into account the Indian Standard Codes, what Indian Standard Code says about construction of houses, what type of joint and column and beam joint should be given. Those things you have to keep in your mind. Also in the urban areas, enforcement of building bylaws, including the land use control and restriction on density and height of building. So if building bylaws are very strictly followed, you will be finding that better the buildings will be performing, and whole system will be safe even the earthquake comes in the area. A strengthening of important lifeline buildings which needs to be functional after the disaster. Upgrading level of the safety of hospitals, fire brigade offices and the buildings. Public awareness, how we can create awareness among the community, sensitizing, training programs for architects, builders, contractors, designers, engineers, government functionaries, house owners or masons. These are the very significant component of our society who are involved in the development process, and they must be trained towards the disaster resistant construction. Reduce possibility of damage from the secondary effects such as fire, floods, landslides, that is identify potential landslide sites and restrict construction in those areas. So this we discussed about how basically earthquake, what are the mechanism, what are the area going to be affected, and what type of precautions we can take for earthquake risk mitigation. Now tsunami. In geological disasters we always talk Japanese word meaning harbor waves. These waves which often affect the distant source, originate from the undersea or the coastal seismic activity, landslides or volcanic eruptions. Onset type and the causes. It is produced in three major ways. One, earthquake, of course, because we may be remembering that this particular recent tsunami in Andaman, because of the basic fault movement, there was a huge wave and energy was discharged. Because of that, our all Andaman, Nicobar and our coastal part of India, that was badly affected. So earthquake is one factor. Second is volcanic activity. There is one incident like 1883, there was a Krakatoa in Indonesia, and the huge volcanic eruption took place, and because of that the area like Java, Sumatra and other part, over 36,000 people lost their lives. Third may be your landslides. If there is a landslides, there may be chances that there will be a jerk and impact on the stream of sea waves, and because of that the coastal area will be affected by landslide tsunami waves. So what specific preparedness we need to take for tsunami? The first thing is that hazard mapping. Hazard mapping is very, very essential, because once you map the area, suppose the earthquake will hit the mid sea, or some faults are passing by in the coastal area or coastal part area. So if there is an earthquake in the seabed, so what will be the waves, what will be the height of the waves which will be hitting the coastal area, and the people will be affected. So that particular modeling can be done, and based on that hazard mapping can be done, so that all the developmental control can be imposed on those areas, and because of that no habitation will be there, and much of the losses we can reduce. Early warning system, because tsunami can be warned, and we need to have a very specific warning communication system. The people, the fishermen or fishermen community, they are going for fishing, they must be told and narrated, they must be warned about the chances of tsunami, so that their life may be saved. So and the community also, so that they can go to the safer area when the tsunami waves are coming to that particular habitation area. Community preparedness, how we can create our community to be ready to face with the disaster, what necessary action is required at the community level, what actions are required at the stakeholder level, so that the impact of tsunami can be reduced. What mitigation measures we can take for tsunami mitigation? Site planning and land management. Here designation and zoning of tsunami hazard area, it is very important. Land use planning measures are required. Reinforce land use planning policies, because every developmental control, you have the land use planning policy that must be enforced and enacted on time in the tsunami prone areas. Engineering structure, site selection, you have to see what sites you must select for construction of the houses and whatsoever infrastructure you are developing in the area. Construction of the structure at the higher ground level, so that even if the tsunami tides are coming, waves are coming, at least your houses are not going to be impacted by the tsunami waves. Construction of water breakers to reduce the velocity of waves. You can have some sort of vegetation or breakers you can provide, so that the impact of the waves, the velocity can be reduced substantially. Use of water and corrosive resistant material for construction, because once the tsunami waves are coming, they are coming with the high velocity, and first of all, if the houses are not made with the corrosive resistant steel, then the structure will be weaker and it will be impacted badly by the tsunami waves. Flood management, because tsunami also comes with the floods, so that also we need to take into account, and all flood resistant technology we must be included in that particular affected area or prone area. Now the third geological disaster, it is landslides. Just you can have a landslides, the forms and the causes, you can just have a look on this particular slide or the picture, where eroding cliffs, rock fall, debris flow in the stream channels, landslides, river bank collapse, rock slide or landslide caused by poor road construction. These are the features which has been shown. This particular picture has been taken from USGS website, in fact. So you can see that what type of landslides it is reported. One of the picture I am just showing it to you. What are the landslides? Landslides are slippery masses of rocks, earth or debris which move by force of their own weight down mountain slopes or river banks. This is the picture I am just showing you, how unstable slopes and how the houses are construction in those area. How, whether we can get the warning of the landslides or not, and whether we have the warning system. See, landslides, though they occur gradually, however, sudden failure can occur without warning also. They may take place in combination of earthquake, floods or volcanic eruptions. There are no clearly established warning in place indicating occurrence of landslide, and hence difficult to predict the actual occurrence of landslide. Areas of high risk can be determined by the use of information about the geology, hydrology, vegetation cover, past occurrence and consequences in the region. What are the causes for the landslides? I discussed about it. It might be geological weak material. This is also one of the reason. Erosion. Then intensive rainfall is also one of the reason, because we have seen in the Konkan area that how excessive rain it is triggering the landslides, and many of the landslides were reported in 2005 due to the excessive rainfalls. Earthquake shaking that we have seen in Chamoli, and even in Assam and northeast states we are finding, followed by earthquake, the landslide events are taking place. Volcanic eruptions are also one of them. If we see the landslides in India, we are finding that Jammu Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttaranchal, northeast states like you can take Nagaland or Assam or Tripura, whatsoever you say 7 states, they are basically suffering from the landslides. Come down, we are finding in the Konkan stretch also, if we start from Bombay till go down till Trivandrum or Kerala part, we are finding they are having moderate vulnerability to the landslides. In India, 1867 and 1880, Nainital, Uttaranchal was having a big landslide. 1913 to 1993, NH1A from Jammu to Srinagar at kilometer 138 Jammu Kashmir, they have always experiencing the landslides. 1955 and 1966 and 1972, Gangtok, Siliguri Road, Sikkim, they have got landslides. And recent was what 1998, where Malpa, Kali River, there was a huge landslides, and 1998 Ukhimat also they experienced the landslides. So, and apart from that, many of the major landslides have been reported in the western part or the northeast states and northern part of India. What are the mitigation measures we can have? The first thing is that hazard mapping. As I told, for every disaster you need to have the hazard mapping. Without hazard mapping, really we cannot anticipate the level of threats, level of danger, and we cannot take action about it. So, hazard mapping is the first and foremost important issue. Land use practices such as area covered by degraded natural vegetation in the upper slopes are to be afforested with the suitable species of flora and fauna. In construction of road, irrigation canals, proper care is required to be taken to avoid blockage of natural drainage, to avoid settlement of community in the high risk area, relocate settlement and infrastructure that falls in the possible path of the landslide, and no construction of buildings in the area beyond a certain degree of slope. This is very important. Retaining wall construction, surface drainage control work, engineering structure, increased vegetation cover, that you have to keep in mind. And last but very important is the community awareness about the landslide management. What we should do, what we should not do, and village level and community level disaster management plan should be in action. These are the few things we discussed about the geological disaster. Let us come to the approach for hydrological and meteorological disasters. Cyclone. We have seen Gujarat cyclone, that is the Kandla one, and Orissa super cyclone, and recently that Bangladesh has been visited by the big cyclone recent past. So, how we define the cyclone? A violent storm, often of vast extent, characterized by high wind rotating about a calm center of low atmospheric pressure. This center moves onward, often with the velocity of 50 kilometers per hour and above. On-site type, they strike suddenly although it takes time to build up. We can have enough time, they can be tracked on the development, but accurate landfall is predictable barely few hours before. The onset is extensive and often very destructive. We can have a very clear picture about how many hours it will take to reach to a particular area. That is quite understanding, and now space technology is helping in a big way. So, IMD and other scientific bodies, they are joining their hands and they are working out that what is the track of cyclone, how much time it will take to pass through that particular area. So, the district administration, the response stakeholders, they are communicated about the problems and they take action accordingly. What type of warning can be given? A low pressure and the developmental can be detected hours or days before the damage effect starts. Satellite tracking can be track the movement since the build up and the likely path is projected. Warning and evacuation is done along the projected path. As I told you, because this particular IMD, Indian Meteorological Department, or other scientific body involved in that particular cyclone forecasting, they give indication to the government, the stakeholders, the community, and they act on that. If you see the India and what is the profile of cyclone, so we are finding that cyclones are mostly hitting the eastern area and lesser in the western part. So, that is the basic profile, and we are finding during the winter season mostly the cyclones are hitting the eastern coast, and if we compare, the western coasts are safer than the eastern coast. What are the mitigation strategy? We can have the hazard mapping, land use zoning, engineering structure, as I told about how we think about your tsunami. Similarly, in case of cyclone also, we can have the cyclone wind storm inundated the coastal areas. It is advised to construct on stilt or on earth mount. The houses should be strong enough to resist the wind pressure, and flood management also it is required to be taken, and improve vegetation cover. So, these are the few points which we have to take into account once we are talking about the cyclone management. Flood disaster management, it is happening every year, and time immemorial we are suffering from, we are facing the floods, but aggravation of floods, the phenomena has been realized in very recent past, and the floods may happen gradually and take hours, or can even happen suddenly due to the breach of the structure, spillover. Heavy downpour can also cause the flashing of the floods. Flood warning communication system is adequately existing in the country like India, and where the Indian Meteorological Department, Central Water Commission, and local irrigation department, they are joining their hands, and accordingly the flood forecasting system is evolved and they are communicated to the stakeholders